Do you have any ideas, tips on how to approach this subject for the girls that might be distinct in the approach from the guys? Because, for the guys, it's like, well, every guy's looking at it. Everyone in my class looks at porn. Whereas with the girls, there's a different element of shame and secrecy. Like, any tips for how to broach the subject when it comes to talking to young women about it?
Yeah, actually, I'd love to hear from you about this. But one thing I do know is, so we work with adults in our ministry, and we've heard from so many adult women who express that because their church had talked about this as an issue that was just a guy's problem, it actually increased their sense of shame. Because now it wasn't just that I'm ashamed that I'm looking at pornography. It's now, well, I don't even have a woman's problem. I've got a guy's problem. What does that mean? That's confusing. One young woman we walked with for a bit, she literally had one of her church leaders that she confided in say, no, you don't have a porn addiction. That's not something you struggle with. That's just a guy issue. And she walked out kind of like, I just told you that was yeah, it was really unhelpful. But I mean, that kind of thing just sends young women into hiding more. And like you just mentioned, the relief that somebody can feel, we're made for the light. We actually love the light. There's something in us that wants to be able to come out into the light and bask in the light. But sin and shame keeps us hiding. It keeps us running towards the darkness. And we begin to believe that that's where we belong. That's the only place where we're going to find love, affection, connection. And so the one thing I'd say is to Christian parents and leaders, you got to talk about this issue with your daughters, and you got to talk about this issue in the larger context as a problem that men and women experience, guys and girls experience, so that you create an environment where girls know I can step out of the darkness and into a place where there's light. I'm welcome there too. So that's what I'd say about. But what I mean, you've talked to a lot of young people. What would you say to that question? I love your question.
Yeah, I learned a lot from Kelsey Skoke's book. We published it for her called Uncompromising Purity. It's not just a guy problem. And she kind of dives into even teaching women how their monthly cycle plays a role in their temptations. Of like, because sometimes out of the blue, the woman will be like, man, it just seems like it's a particular time of the month, I'm really interested in this stuff. And I'm so much more sensitive to human touch, and my, all my senses are heightened and my desires are worse, my temptation. Where's this coming from? But if we're teaching them the cycle of their own fertility and how that ties in to their desire for affection and touch and sense and all these things, it's like, oh, that makes a little sense. And so they can kind of shore up their defenses, so to speak, leading into that part of the month. And it's not just temptations, but, things like anxiety disorders, mood dysregulation. A lot of times when a woman understands her cycle, she can be more patient with herself of like, hey, maybe I'm feeling a little bit more anxiety than normal. Well, maybe it's because of this. Okay, that doesn't take away the temptation, but frames it in a biological context. They don't realize, wow, something is so wrong with me if I'm feeling a fluctuation of desire, anxiety, or this or that. And so just helping her to understand herself. And then also the relational desire that's underneath a lot of these cravings. I used to say that, pornography for a guy, is, one word, Playboy, and then 50,000 pictures. Whereas for a girl, pornography is more like, one picture of like Fabio on the cover and then 50,000 words. That's an oversimplification of this gender stereotype, because the pictures are obviously also stimulating to women. But I think what makes it all the more alluring is the storyline behind it, of desirability, of pursuit, of strength, and that's why I think it makes a special sense when I heard a man say that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's human connection. And so I think quite often when a woman is lacking healthy intimacy, healthy human connection, it's so easy to escape into this pornographic world. And then when they do, they imbibe this sense of shame. And then sometimes that shame, to me, I think becomes so deep, it's almost as if they return to the porn to marinate in this broken identity of shamefulness, of, well, a failure is who I am, alone is who I am, shameful is what I am. And so I'm just going back like to the scene of the crime, so to speak, to recreate this sense of shame, because that's who I believe I am. So there's deep psychological stuff going on, whether you're male or female, but how do we, go on ahead.
Well, what's fascinating about what you're saying is, I think I like and I appreciate it's the stereotype, but I like the difference between guys and girls with that. But I think at the same time, it is telling. I mean, it's just kind of telling. I think girls may be more in touch with their relational side. Mm-hmm. the story of pornography, the story of the image is the story of the gospel. It's twisted, it's contorted, it's shaded, it's blurred, but it's still the same story. A naked body is an expression. It's an expression of, you are worth this much. You can have all of me. Yeah. And so the relational longings of a man or woman's heart is drawn to that. The identity issues of a person. So if they're feeling like a piece of crap because of what they've been looking at, there is still, the heart still finds that draw of, I feel lousy. I feel like a piece of garbage. I don't even feel like I can go to my church or people in my life to talk to about this. But the heart, and not the mind may be completely confused about what a person's doing, but the heart says that this person here, this image here is giving their full self to me. They still see something valuable to me, even though it's a fiction, an illusion, not the real thing. It's still speaking to the heart on that deep level. And I think that's some of the it's there are two sides to it. On the one side, it's the sinister expression of porn because it's hijacking something good that we're really longing for. On the other side, I do think it helps to speak to a person. You're not longing for this because you're completely broken and utterly disgusting. You're longing for it because deep down inside, you're longing for something that God has created you to long for, a deep sense of your worth and identity, your value as an image bearer of God, a deep sense of connection with God and others. Those are human longings. Those aren't perverse longings. They just get twisted in pornography. So I love that. I love what you were sharing there. I think it leads us in a really good direction with conversations around this stuff.
Yeah, because what you're saying, I think, is healthy for especially the young women to kind of affirm the yearn that's underneath it. That instead of shaming it, oh, that's bad. It's like, well, maybe there's something really good that you're after, that you're created for, that you deserve, and that's why you desire these things. And I think when we live in a culture that's kind of rebelling against gender stereotypes in general, because maybe they become so rigid that now we're kind of throwing out the baby with the bathwater and saying, no, masculine, feminine, it's just cultural conditioning and stereotypes are all false. But like, instead of letting the pendulum swing so far to the point that we're discarding any of our sexual differences, maybe we need to have a more balanced approach and be like, okay, why are there really no male pornographic romance novels targeted at male audiences? Like, are men really, what percentage of the population of men in the world are reading 400-page thick, long sexual romance novels? Like, really, what are we talking about here? Like 0.000000001%. Why? Is it because the culture just conditioned us not to like romance novels? I think we have to ask the courage of like, why is that appealing to the woman's heart? Some women, why are they? It's because they want to be part of this story, this adventure, this tension of feeling perhaps unwanted, but yet being desired by this person of strength over these other people, and the conflict and the tension, like underneath all those broken desires. Because concupiscence, a friend of mine described it the other day. He said, it's almost like you're at the moment of temptation, like the edge of the cliff. And concupiscence, which is that kind of darkened intellect, weakened will, our disordered appetite that we inherited through original sin. He's like, that kind of just leans us over that cliff a little bit. It's this natural inclination due to our brokenness to kind of lean over into the wrong direction. Obviously, grace in time that can be redeemed to a great extent. But so we just got to affirm in women this desire that this isn't just part of an earthly romance that you desire. Like, this is the craving of your soul to be desired by an eternal bridegroom who longs to become one with you in this ecstatic union of your glorified body and soul. Like, you're created for this, and all the devil can do is just twist and distort it and feed you this counterfeit that's going to leave you feeling like your bridegroom doesn't even desire you anymore.
Yeah. And isn't that the most shameful piece, the saddest part of this, it is to me, that the longing of our bridegroom is union with us to the point where when he saw us unfaithful, sullied by our own sin, came for us, and in that state gave us his body. This is my body given for you, his naked flesh given up for us. And yet so often we walk around in our broken state, in our sinful state, believing that he wants nothing to do with us anymore. And this is, as we talk about this in the book, I don't know what it was like for you growing up. Sounds like your mom did some things right, but I know that for so many Christian kids, there's kind of been the sense of, it's an all or nothing. It's a light switch thing. The light's either on or off. I either remain a virgin till I'm married or I don't. And if I messed up in some way, then game over. I don't really have that pure gift to offer on my wedding night. And I think that kind of vision for our kids, if that's the vision we're giving our kids, like just stay a virgin till you're married, that's the real goal. That's a great goal, but that's a subcategory of a much larger goal, a much longer journey that we're all on, which is a journey of becoming people who learn to love like Jesus loves. If our kids only have that vision, one of the things we'd like to say is if whatever vision we put in front of our kids, if they can ever move beyond it, so it's behind them, then the vision's too small. So if they ever, if they have sex before they get married, if they look at pornography, if they masturbate, whatever it may be, where they feel like, I'm already damaged goods, then they're going to be more prone to go back into the darkness. We don't want that. The Christian message is that even though we had strayed far, even though we had messed up, that was the place where he came for us, where sin increased, grace increased all the more. That's unbelievable, astounding, but we've got to dare to believe it as parents for our kids. So I think part of the vision we want to set for them is a lifelong vision that doesn't just get them to the finish line of marriage, but extends throughout marriage. It's like, how do I become a person who loves? How do I become a woman who loves with a Christ-like love? How do I become a man who loves with a Christ-like love? That's a journey that we're on as parents. So let's be on it together with our kids.
Yeah, no, what you're saying reminds me of an episode we did a while back with a woman named Rachel Geiger. The episode is called Idolizing Virginity. And she made this point that I thought was excellent, is that you do not have value because of your virginity. Your sexuality has value because of you. Because if you value yourself on the presence or absence of your virginity, then even some people, when they get married and lose their virginity, feel like they've lost something. It's because they were kind of raised in this false idea of like virginity is the barometer of your value, and you can't let go of that. And then it's gone, and it's like, well, I just have less to give to a husband one day because I had one shot and I blew it. And so what's the point of waiting? Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that little clip, but if you want to see the whole episode where this came from, just click the link here. And in the meantime, we want to invite you to help us share this message, and there's a couple things you can do real quick. Number one, if you like or comment or share this video, YouTube will actually show it to more people. Also, don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell. We release videos every single day, and you'll be notified as soon as those come out. If you want to help us also to spread this message, you can support us at patreon.com/Jason Evert. That helps us to create these videos and show them to the whole world. God bless.